If the grocery stores closed tomorrow, how long would you survive? What if I told you there is a biological machine designed by evolution that produces more food per acre than a potato farm? It requires zero fertilizer, zero planting, and runs entirely on solar power. It produces food not just once, but 4 times a year. Roots, shoots, pollen seeds. It is possibly growing within a mile of your house right now. But you don't see it as food. You see it as a weed. This plant produces 10 times the starch of potatoes. For 30,000 years, this was humanity's grocery store. But then we did something foolish. We drained the store to build a parking lot. We replaced a perennial system of abundance with an annual system of scarcity. This is the story of the supermarket of the swamp that we threw away just before we needed it most. Welcome to Ancient Crops Archive. Let me open the archive. We are going back 30,000 years. The location is the banks of the Yangtze River in China, a site from the Paleolithic era. When researchers analyzed the ancient stone tools found there, they expected to find evidence of the hunt or animal fat. Instead, they found something that changed the timeline of history: starch grains, but not from wheat, not from rice. These were starch grains from the roots of a wild wetland plant. Think about what that means. Long before the invention of agriculture, before anyone ever thought to plow a field or domesticate an animal, our ancestors were already processing this plant into flour. Jump forward to Italy. 30,000-year-old grinding stones covered in the same residue. This was not a backup food for desperate times. This was a staple. In a world where survival meant knowing exactly what to harvest, first they chose the cattail, or scientifically, Typha latifolia. Why? Because evolution engineered this plant for one specific purpose: to feed continuously. Most modern crops give you one harvest a year. If the frost comes early, you go hungry. But the cattail gives you 4 distinct harvests. It is a biological fortress against hunger. So if this plant is so miraculous, why isn't it in your pantry? The answer is uncomfortable. It was not nature that removed the cattail. It was policy. The systematic dismantling began in 1849 when the United States Congress passed the first Swampland Act. It sounded benevolent, a gift of federal land to the states, but it came with one strict condition: drain them. The prevailing economic theory of the 19th century was brutally simple water. Standing on land is waste. A geological dictionary from 1822 defined a swamp as a piece of land with wet, miry soil that is unprofitable or even a nuisance until it be drained. Nuisance. That was the word they used for the ecosystem that fed the continent. By 1850, the act expanded, and the scale of destruction became continental. 50 million acres were transferred with the mandate to alter the hydrology. The list of targets was massive: Arkansas, Alabama, California, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Missouri, Ohio, and Wisconsin. The government even published best-selling guides with titles like "Draining for Profit." Then came the instrument to finish the campaign. In 1902, the Buckeye steam traction ditcher was invented. This mechanized beast could lay drainage tiles faster than 100 men working by hand. The Great Black Swamp in Ohio, once a massive carbon sink and food forest, was drained dry. The Florida Everglades saw 20 million acres channeled and diverted. The result was catastrophic. Of the 221 million acres of wetlands that once existed in the lower 48 states, only 103 million remain. More than half are gone. We traded a perennial self-sustaining food system for the Corn Belt annual crops that require billions of dollars in fertilizer, pesticides, and diesel fuel to survive. Why make this trade? Because wetlands had a fatal flaw. They could not be controlled. You cannot sell someone seeds for a plant that replants itself every year. You cannot patent a root system that spreads across 3 acres. You cannot tax a person for walking into a marsh and gathering pollen. A perennial food system that regenerates itself is a threat to an economy built on scarcity. But nature is stubborn. Despite the drainage campaigns, the cattail survived. And here is what it offers you if you know how to look. Spring. The young shoots emerge from the mud. Peel away the outer leaves to reveal a crisp white core. It tastes like cucumber. The Europeans called it Cossack asparagus. It was a delicacy that saved thousands from deficiency after long winters. Early summer. The green flower heads appear. Boil them before they pollinate. They taste like corn on the cob, but with a rich, earthy depth. Midsummer. This is the gold rush. The male flowers release pollen. This is not dust. It is gold. It is high-protein flour ready to harvest. You can shake a single stalk and collect tablespoons of it. Winter. When the rest of the world is dead and frozen, the real treasure is waiting underground. The rhizomes. They are packed with 30 to 46% starch by weight. Let's talk numbers. 1 acre of cattails can produce 6,400 pounds of flour. That is more than wheat, more than corn, more than rye. And you never planted a seed. It is a biological powerhouse. However, pause right now. Stop what you are doing and listen to me closely, because what I am about to tell you is the difference between survival and fatal error. Do not, I repeat, do not go to the side of the highway or an industrial ditch and harvest these. Cattails are the kidneys of the earth. Science calls them bioaccumulators. These plants are biological magnets designed to suck up nitrogen, phosphorus, and toxic pollution to heal the water. They store these contaminants in their tissues, specifically in the very roots you are planning to eat. If you eat a cattail from a polluted ditch, you are not eating a vegetable. You are eating a concentrated toxic cocktail of heavy metals, lead, and chemical waste. This is the trap of the modern forager. You see a free lunch. The plant sees a job to do. It sacrifices itself to clean our mess. If you harvest blindly, you make it sacrifice your poison. Only harvest from pristine, tested waters, far from roads and factories. If you cannot verify the water source, walk away. Respect the chemistry, or it will severely harm you. This ability to absorb toxins, the very thing that makes them dangerous to eat in polluted areas, is exactly what makes them the healer of our damaged landscapes. We are currently facing a crisis that few talk about: the synthetic fertilizers we dump onto our corn and soy fields. Do not stay there. They run off into our rivers and lakes, feeding massive toxic algae blooms. They create dead zones where no aquatic life can survive. We are literally suffocating our water to grow cheap starch. But the cattail offers a biological interception. Planting cattails in buffer zones soaks up that chemical runoff before it kills the water. The numbers are undeniable. Harvesting just 250 acres of cattails removes 5 tons of pure phosphorus from the ecosystem. That is 5 tons of potential algae blooms, stopped dead in their tracks. And it gets better. This is a closed-loop system, the holy grail of sustainability. When you harvest that biomass and burn it for bioenergy or heat, the carbon goes back to the air, but the phosphorus remains in the ash. That ash is now a high-grade reclaimed fertilizer, ready to go back onto the fields. We stop mining the earth for new phosphorus and start recycling what we already have. Scientists in Minnesota discovered that cattails can produce 22 tons of biomass per acre. To put that in perspective, that rivals our most engineered bioenergy crops. That is a staggering amount of renewable energy growing in a ditch. And unlike corn, which strips the land and causes massive topsoil erosion, cattails build the soil. Their dense root systems hold the earth together, and as they die back, they deposit layers of organic matter, sequestering carbon deep in the mud for centuries. But let's step away from the industrial scale. Let's talk about you. In the wild, alone. This plant is a survival kit in itself. The fluff from the seed heads isn't just decoration. It is one of nature's best insulators. It has been used to line jackets, stuff pillows, and insulate moccasins against freezing snow. It is remarkably buoyant and warm. And the medicine. It is right there in the leaves. At the base of the stalk, you will find a sticky clear jelly. This is nature's anesthetic. It is a potent antiseptic and a numbing agent. Indigenous peoples applied it to wounds to prevent infection and rubbed it on the gums of teething infants or adults with toothaches. One single plant. It cleans the water, builds the soil, powers our homes, feeds our bodies, heals our wounds, and keeps us warm. It is not just a crop. It is a civilization starter kit. We are compromising the solution to protect the problem. Landowners spend millions on herbicides to remove the most productive food plant on the continent, but the knowledge was never lost, only ignored. If you choose to bring this plant back into your life, do it with respect. And a word of caution for the gardeners. The cattail is a conqueror. If you plant it in your small pond, it will take over everything. It does not share space well. Plant it in a pot with no drainage holes. Contain it, or it will reclaim your garden just like it wants to reclaim the wetlands. The supermarket of the swamp is still open. It grows in every marsh, every riverbank. It asks for nothing. It only waits for us to remember what true wealth looks like. This is Ancient Crops Archive. If you want to survive the future, you have to look into the past. Subscribe and join the resistance. The next vault opens soon.